Welcome everybody to this little interview that we're doing today between myself, Blaise van Hecke from Busy Bird Publishing, and Saffire-Rose Fletcher, a newly minted author. How are you tonight? Today, I should say. I was going to say tonight. It's daytime. Saffire-Rose, how are you?
Good. How are you going? It's actually pronounced Saffire-Rose.
Saffire-Rose. Oh, thanks for that. That's good.
That's okay. It's just, it's been spelled very differently thanks to my mother, which is a long story.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, I tend to call you Saff anyway. I'm sure a lot of people call you that, do they?
That's
So let's see your newly minted book. Have you got that with you?
I sure do.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. I love the cover.
Thank you.
And
photo myself.
Yeah, an awesome way of using a selfie.
Who'd have thought, just doing this and then just going.
Definitely. So your book is relatively new out in the world, and you have been working on this book for quite a few years. How long were you writing it?
Now it would be 4 years.
Yeah. Yeah. See, a lot of people think that you can just whip up a book like that, but there's a lot of thinking going behind it, a lot of writing, a lot of rewriting, and from memory, your original draft was, I don't know, was it around 100,000 words or something like that?
Originally, it was 150,000.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And that actually trying to pull that back one by one, thanks to your advice. I pretty much had to undo everything, rewrite everything from the beginning, still didn't work. And then I tried for the third attempt and I was like, how do I actually tell a narrative to an audience who doesn't know my story, that I have to really actually recite every single detail because they're not going to know. Like I have to actually say, oh, I went to the beach, but I drove there by this, by A. I've got to literally connect all the dots because then people are going to go, but weren't you with Fred at this moment? And what happened with Sally?
Yeah.
I actually research how to tell a narrative by myself.
Yeah. But you did a fantastic job of actually honing it down into, a much more easier to digest because, if you have 150,000 words, that could be, 400 pages or more. And in this day and age, people, don't really have the stamina to read something so big. So it's really good if you can be a bit more succinct. So did that take a long time to whittle it down?
A very long time, yes. A lot of late nights and a lot of tears, a lot of sleepless nights, headaches, everything. It was very difficult.
Yeah. Well, you did a good job. Thank you. In terms of, the actual book, why did you write it?
Originally, I wrote it as a diary to myself because I wanted to understand my psychological patterns. I started to become more aware in most of my dynamic, like in most of the relationships, the dynamics were always repeating. And I'm just like, why are these cycles repeating? I need to understand my life purpose, what's happening, to my relationships, to myself. Who am I even? So I started writing a diary about just how I was feeling with each interaction. And I also did a counseling qualification that provided me more insight into my patterns. And I just wanted to authentically tell my truth, but not with, I didn't want to throw anyone under the bus. I wanted to end every chapter with saying everyone was enough. We just weren't right for each other. We were at that time to learn our lessons, but we had to learn those lessons through each other. But when the time was ending, it was a very painful process. But I wanted people to understand that just because something has departed and you're going on to something else, the best way we can move forward is with less judgment, less, harsher if that's even a word. I've made it up if it is. It isn't, rather. But without being cruel. And I want to teach people that it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to say, hey, I've had toxic tendencies in the past, but there's a reason for that. So if you actually get to understand the psychological patterns of a person, primarily we don't have time for that, but I wanted to summarize it so people could actually just go, oh, that's happened to me and I've done that. And with a bit of self-awareness, just going, oh, I understand that. But a lot of people cannot understand someone else's reactions and triggers because they haven't lived that person's life. So I'm trying to explain, you don't know what that person's been through. So if that person's a bit toxic in a relationship, That's because they're scared. Like the most primary essence of relationship breakdowns is through fear, because fear of not being enough. And we all have to teach each other that. Each person in our life teaches us that that realization. We come to that epiphany. So I just really want to show people that it's okay to be vulnerable, that you will get to a place of self-love, but it's daily work. And it's okay to be yourself. At the end game, we must be ourselves, because otherwise we're not being true to ourselves.
And I think that's actually really important in this day and age, because there is so much stuff on social media that is fake, or that has people thinking that there's high ideals they have to attain, and so it makes them feel small, because they go, oh well, I don't do XYZ like someone else, so I must be inferior. And I think too, it's you mentioned the word self-awareness, and I think for a lot of people, they don't have that self-awareness.
They don't.
And if that's one thing that someone gets from your story, I think that's really valuable, because the self-awareness will take them on to a different journey of their own self-discovery.
And thank you for actually saying that. The only issue there is a lot of people cannot get to the stage of self-awareness. They will get there, but it's hard to acknowledge, because they have to break through a lot of ego in order to get there. The ego is the protection. So a lot of people, the reason why they keep repeating the cycles is they're not willing to sit in the uncomfortable truths. And that's what I've done in my book. And I want to show people, hey, let's hold our hands together. I'm not healed yet, but let's heal together. Let's actually honor our fears and go, okay, I'm scared of this. I'm going to have to face it, because it's going to keep circulating. So let's do this together, people. It's okay.
Yeah, that's cool. In terms of the, when you were doing the journaling, did you find that helpful just for your own mental health?
I did, because I started to realize I'm trapped in all these, I keep, connecting to all these people who don't like me. They don't want me. They want to change me, and they want me to be someone who's rich and has long dark hair, or or just something that I'm not. They don't like the way I dress or my makeup or the way I speak or anything. And I just was like, I don't want to change anything about you. I haven't attempted to once with any of these people. Why did I keep attracting that with me? And I realized it was a reflection of how I felt about myself, and it was all these inner wounds that I hadn't addressed yet. That was the universe was literally mirroring how I felt about myself. So I had to face that. So that's basically, I had many revelations, let's just say.
Yeah. Now, I think journaling is something that's very underestimated in terms of whether you end up with a book or not. I think for your own, it's almost like you can use it as a therapist, because it's a sounding board, and quite often you can ask yourself a question about something like, why was X or XYZ bitchy to me today? Did I invite that, or did I do something to make them bitchy to me, or whatever it is, or just even to check in with yourself and about how you're feeling, or to give gratitude, or any number of things. I think it's quite underestimated how powerful it is. Sometimes it can be painful as well, because, if you're really delving deeply, you can visit stuff that you probably don't want to. Yeah. Did you find that? Did you find there were times where you were writing and you were very triggered and you had to stop?
Oh, yes, many times. I was suddenly going, oh, dear, that's why. Okay, I'm going to leave that for the moment, and I'll come back to you tomorrow. I'm not ready for that today. And the other thing that was really tricky was when I went back to it the third time, I actually found revisiting the loss of my mother and other things, that a lot of abandonment issues started to surface, and a lot of feelings of being left alone in the world, to contend with my own life and navigate it alone, was really hard to realize. And I started also questioning my mother's intentions and how she raised me, and that was really hard, because I actually had to see a therapist, and that's what I've described in my book at the very end, seeing a therapist. I had this almost resentment happening for my mother, and I was just like, I love my mother, I don't resent her, how could I feel this way about her? And it's just, I had these dreams, or I was arguing with her, and I just was like, I started to realize that there was underlining feelings of, I love you, and we healed together when you left, but why did you not protect me? Like, why didn't you set us up properly? And it's just all these feelings of just like, why? And I just had to go, because she's human. She had a past. She didn't realize, exactly how to navigate motherhood all over again. Long story. She had her own traumas, and I had to learn that, hey, I've made many mistakes in my life, and I'm not perfect. And I had to actually honor that and just go, that's okay. You know, I forgive her.
Yeah. I think too, for a lot of people who might have, a bit of a troubled relationship with their mother, there's always the love and and maybe those sort of hurts or whatever. For a lot of people, or for most people who become parents, there's no book to tell you how to do it. I mean, you can buy books on parenting, sure, but it doesn't really prepare you at all.
Absolutely.
And you kind of just do the best that you can do as you go, and quite often a lot of parents haven't been parented properly themselves, and so
Exactly.
they're kind of clueless. So obviously the writing has helped you kind of work that out a little bit.
It definitely has, especially my counselling qualification. That definitely helped, and also doing therapy, because it was one thing I was not willing to do for many years. And then 3 years ago, I started a journey of therapy. And at first I was resistant, and then I was just like, no, I need to actually find out what is going on with me. Like, why do these cycles keep repeating? So I had to really unpack a lot of uncomfortable truths. But with that now has come a lot of forgiveness. And my next book, it really is surprising, the first chapter, but I won't go on to that, because you wouldn't expect what happens. It's really, the plot thickens.
Cool.
But it actually
I'm intrigued.
without the pun rather. But it just like I actually have a really rough time, but it provides this awakening of forgiveness for me, and just this appreciation for the simple things, and realizing that everything else does not matter. But I will get more into that another time. But it's been a wonderful journey. I just can't recommend therapy and sitting in the uncomfortable truths enough, because it really is rewarding. It's hard. You'll cry a lot. You'll feel like you're going insane for a little while. And you probably do go insane for a little while, but that's okay. Like, we're human. We're not here, like you said, in motherhood. You didn't come here with a rule book when it comes to mothering, nor did we as humans. So why not just embrace the fact that, hey, we're just navigating the best way we can.
Definitely. And in terms of, now that it's like published in print and kind of out in the world, how in the lead up to that, just before it was the first person got a copy, how did you feel? Because it's a very vulnerable space to be, because it's one thing to write it and to live in that little world, that little bubble where no one's really going to judge it. How has it been? Or, have you had any interesting feedback? Or
Well, the interesting thing, I had sent my first published copy just as I came out of surgery for my rib. So I'd been in hospital for 5 days, so I was all like doped up and just going, oh, this is fine, I don't care, like whatever. Like, as hard as, I'll be fine. And then I came back and I was like, oh gee, this is really happening. I have to change, the world knowing my whole inner dialogue. But it was very prior to going into surgery, when I wasn't all like, I was scared, and I actually had a moment when I doubted if I could, do it. I was nearly going to say, hold the book. I was nearly going to actually send you an email and say, hold it, I'm not ready. And then I'm like, no, I'm doing this. It's a very scary process, but it's very therapeutic too.
And I think the payback over time is worth it, because I don't think people realise how much hard work it is to write a book in the first place, and then to go through the publishing process, the editing and the layout and design and all of that kind of thing.
Because you're sort of just like, why are we going back here? I've already gone through this. Oh my God, like I'm going to have a breakdown by the time this is finished. Oh, lovely. hopefully this is going to be a great start to my day. I'm after this session.
And in a way, it is like having a baby in a strange kind of way, because you go through all of this hard thing, and you kind of question why you're doing it, and then you have it. And there are, to me, so many positive things that come from it, because you've got your story out, you've kind of like moved, and you tend to move on from that story because that is the past you in a way. And then you start thinking of the next chapter, if you like.
Yeah. Or the next book.
Or the next book, yes. So many people do, go on to write other books when they've written one, because it does. You do grow through it. I think so anyway. You grow
I agree.
hugely through it. What sort of feedback have you had from readers?
Surprisingly, a lot of good feedback. Even my ex-music manager, we've done a lot of healing together, and he read it. Like, we've caught up over coffee several times now, and we read it, and he read it rather, and he actually had the most beautiful review and saying that it's a book for everyone, and that was just everything that I needed to hear. I've actually had another supporter of my music who's actually written a poem inspired by my book, and I was brought to tears by what I'd read. I had people in the US and the UK sending me feedback saying, oh my God, this book is just everything I've needed right now, especially after mid pandemic rather. So I've actually, a lot of it's been quite lovely to hear that I'm making a difference. It's quite
cool.
Positive. Yeah.
And I always say to people, sometimes I talk to people who are, further back in the process of just starting out writing their book. And, because it's hard work, they go, oh, why am I bothering to do this? Like, I don't know what the outcome is going to be. And I always say first you should be writing it for yourself. But then I said, well, once your book is out, if one person comes up to you and says that they had an aha moment or something within your story has helped them, to me that's worth it. Just the one person.
Yeah.
In terms of your storytelling, you are also a singer. And songwriter. Like, do you write your own lyrics?
Oh, I certainly do. They originally started out as poems. So that's where I got the inspiration for writing originally about 7 years ago. And I was previously on the journey of being a singer-songwriter for about 5 years there. Did 250 gigs, not worldwide, I wish, Australia-wide. I had a band, a manager, it really was kicking off for me. But the genre wasn't true to my heart, and because of the limitations within that placement, it was very hard for me to proceed. So I pulled away for a little while and started writing on my own, and I stopped playing live. So my songwriting's improved immensely. And now I'm actually about to venture off back to school and finish my contemporary music bachelor. So so
essentially you're a storyteller. Just a couple of different kind of platforms. How do you find writing, say, lyrics different to writing a book?
I feel it's very much the same, but there's more pressure in writing a book. Not pressure, but there's more, you really need to verbalize, you need to articulate your story to a generalized public, because not everybody is born with a creative mind. So some people won't understand metaphors. So you need to, and that's not saying they're stupid. It's just saying you sometimes have to really bring it back down to simple, being very simple about your story, and really recite it to them through the words in a way that they can connect every dot. In music, you can just say a whole bunch of words that could mean anything, and somebody can just interpret it at whatever is fitting to them.
Yeah, cool. What do you have a favorite thing? Writing songs or poems or writing books or?
I have a favorite thing. Whatever my heart is connected to at the time is my favorite. So I cannot actually select that. Yeah.
And I think actually, because you were talking about being vulnerable earlier, I think that's the biggest thing about being creative, is you actually have to be vulnerable to access your creative core. Absolutely. And if you're not authentic, then whatever you produce doesn't come across as authentic and people don't resonate with it as much. Would you think that?
I would definitely agree with that. Originally, when I started performing live, a lot of my songs were very, I wouldn't say toxic, but very dark.
Yeah.
And I had to actually get up on stage and just go, you're going to know all my life stories and inner dialogue and how much I hate my exes right now because they've made me realize I need to love myself. But hey, you know, so it's just like, so I didn't realize how brave that was until now, to go out there as, you know, quite a young lady in respect, you know, and actually just like tell a story to a whole bunch of people you do not know. So in that way, I've applied that to the book and realized that was quite brave in itself, because if you ever want to reach someone, you can't do that unless you're vulnerable, you know, because otherwise, if you just sort of hold back on all your feelings, and people are sort of just going to be like, oh, this isn't resonating because like I don't like, it's not, you know, I need to hear more, because otherwise I'm not going to have that epiphany myself, you know.
And I think too, for a lot of people who are creating books or music or whatever, sometimes they try and think commercially, and that's where you're not being vulnerable and not being authentic, and then they're surprised that no one really likes what they're putting out there, you know, because it's sort of, people can read the fake, you know, pretty quickly. So so well done to you to, you know, for writing a book and then distilling it down to something, you know, that's easier for people to access. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what the next book is about.
Ooh,
how is it non-fiction again, or is it fictionalized?
Non-fiction, it's just commencing off, because I'm using a play on words. So this book is Maybe I Can Rise Above. The next book will be called I Rose Above. So cool. It's actually like the journey of rising above. But the realization I've had, without giving away the entire book, is that in rising above, you must accept that you will always fall and you will still be above, because it's not about getting above, because nobody's a god. We're not invincible, you know. And in actually really rising above is actually accepting yourself in this moment of, and I've kind of concluded that already in this book, but I think I needed to go through a cycle of sequences again to go, even if you get to here, you're still going to come down at some point, you know, like, and you need to accept that and actually really be comfortable in that space of, I've been rejected and I failed, but I still tried. So I did rise above, you know?
And I think each time you're that little bit stronger and a little bit, you know, wiser and all of those sorts of things. So getting up again, you know, otherwise we just stay in this holding pattern our whole lives, and, you know, we get to be, you know, old people and regret that we didn't do the things that we wanted to do, and we just kind of lived life, I don't know, without really feeling or thinking, or just going through the motions.
Agreed.
And that's kind of boring.
I couldn't agree more. I love philosophy, and you're speaking my language.
Cool. All right, Saf, it's been great to chat with you today about your book.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
That's okay. I really look forward to seeing what happens, and maybe seeing some more of your music too, because I think, you know, they're not two separate entities. They're kind of interchangeable, and any way that we can express ourselves creatively is really good, and it can help other people. You know, like you were saying, you know, some of those songs are a bit dark, but you'll probably find that a lot of people in the audience were going through stuff like that too. And that's where people go, oh yeah, this person gets what I'm going through, you know. So you feel less alone when you see someone else living that.
I agree. I had a lot of people actually cry in the audience to my songs, and I was just like, oh, I don't want to make you cry. And then I realized I had one woman approach me at a bar once and said, you just made my mother cry, and she's like very hard edge. She never cries. You're going to be like an Ed Sheeran one day. And I'm just like, thank you. But I don't want to get upset. Is she okay? And it's just like your voice. There's something about it that's really like real and organic and authentic. And it's from the heart. And I'm just like, that's good, but it needs to be fine tuned. Hence why I'm going back to school.
That's cool. And, you know, we're always growing and learning, aren't we? Once you stop doing that, then, you know, you can't. If you want to keep growing, keep evolving into something better, then you have to be open to different experiences and learning different things.
Yeah,
Definitely.
and also learning how to get out of your comfort zone, which is really difficult for a lot of people because they have a lot of triggers that come with that. So I speak about a lot of that in my book, and there's a bit of a stigma around people being insecure, and I really want to get my message across in this, that insecurity is not, you know, it's not a weakness, it's not something to be ashamed of, it's just a trigger. And some people will not they will not know how to contend with that based on their own level of experience, because to them it's just like, oh God, this is too much, I've got other things to think about today. And then you feel like, oh my God, I'm so emotional and I'm too needy, you know. And I really want to get that message across. So bit off topic, but just a little extra add in there.
That's cool. All right, so hold your book up again. So people can see it. Yeah. So Saf's book is available at online stores like Amazon and Book Depository and what have you. So we encourage you to buy a copy, make a great present for someone who you think might need a little bit of a kick up the bum, maybe.
In a nice way.
In a nice way, yeah.